Welcome back to the Financial Edge with Scott Neu, Reinke Gray Wealth Management. Getting back into 2025. We've got our first podcast here in the new year. Brad Reinke is going to be on board with us today. Son of our first inaugural podcast of Daryl Reinke, 30-year vet in the industry, so part of the company and the get-goes. And going to have him on, talk about the start of this, if it was always his passion, his travels within that, and then just bits and pieces of the journey that he's had in almost 3 decades exactly of his service here in the wealth management industry and in the peer community. So excited for it and enjoy. Thanks. All right. We're into 2025. We've got a special guest here, Brad Reinke of Reinke Gray Wealth Management. I know we've been trying to pin down some times. It's one of those things where start of the year, middle of the year, end of the year, after hours, both of us, we're busy all the time, getting on the phones, traveling to see clients, and just in the mix of everything. But we pinned down a window here today to get you in the mix. Yes, a little time that we can have this. I appreciate it. And I'm going to just kind of start this off with, yesterday we had a plan to do this. Technology throws its ugly head in the mix where we don't have any internet, don't have the access to do this little call to record it and all those types of things. Technology today for me has been computer-based. You've been in the industry for 30 years, right? I think at this point in time, right?
Yep, 30th year this year.
How has that side, we're going to just start there. How has that changed in that time frame of where we're at?
Wow. Incredible change, Scott, to be honest with you. When I first walked into the office with my dad and his original partner, John Culberson, I didn't have a computer in my office. My dad and John had a window cut between their two offices with a Lazy Susan that they shared a order entry computer. I'm using the term loosely, that actually didn't even have the regular keyboard that we're used to today.
Yeah.
It had letters A, B, C, D. You had to hunt and peck because all you're doing is typing in symbols of securities that you're going to buy. So we had no computers. And fast forward to the late 90s, obviously the advent of accessible internet to the world. I remember having to lobby our corporate headquarters at that time to get a computer to be able to access the first stock information from some kind of advisory company out there. And we bought a little Gateway 2000 computer and we hooked it up to dial-up. Those of you that are probably age 45 or older can hear the dial-up ringtone in your head right now of connecting to the internet, and had extraordinarily slow internet service. But that's how we started. And then you fast forward to where we are today. Not only has technology integrated the ability to do what we're doing right now.
Right.
5 years ago, nobody did video calls unless it was in some corporate boardroom with, tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Now we're able to interact with clients much more readily, whether it's through cell phone, whether it's through Zoom calls, not to talk about the technology as far as asset management is concerned. I literally used to write out a paper ticket and hand it to the gals in the front of the office that said, "Hey, Joe Schmo wants to buy $5,000 of Coca-Cola."
Right.
It was just a hand paper ticket, and I handed it to them, and they did whatever they did to make that happen.
Yeah.
Today, we can trade thousands of accounts with a push of a button. It's just the efficiency is incredible, but yet we have to be able to adapt and overcome. And as you started this with our technology issues we had yesterday, I'm afraid sometimes we become so reliant on technology that we forget how to do things without a button to push. And
Right.
So I think it's important to keep some of the human element in this is really important. We have to be able to do our jobs, whether technology is there or not. So good exercise yesterday.
No, and that's just the fun part about, I think, what we do is, with the onset of a Zoom call and being able to connect people from all these different states and all these different areas and have this interaction of you and I on a face-to-face versus over a phone call or a handwritten note, I think both of those things are impactful in themselves. But being able to connect people in our industry, when we're working with people all over the United States in different fashions, to be able to still have this face-to-face recognition, and then just that ability to read the person across from you rather than hearing the tone of their voice or trying to decipher their tone on their email. I can
Right.
see your reaction in what we're talking about. And I think when you're managing people's well-being, and whether it be the financial side of things that we deal with or the personal things that we run into all the time in conversation, having that connection of the person across for you is integral. But you throw a curveball in of an internet going down, and you go back to the Stone Age, you go, well, what's the next best thing? And I think that's,
Yep.
for somebody that's been in each one of those parts of the industry and all different technology, if we were to go to the Stone Ages, you would miss a beat. And I know for me, I'd have somebody that I could lean on to go, okay, what's the next best step to
Yep.
help us work into the next thing that we're doing? And that's one of the best parts of us at Reinke Gray is this communal team effort where there's something I don't know, maybe Brad does, and there's something that Brad might not know. Maybe I've got the foresight to go into it. And,
Yep.
and those things on top of technology just allow us to expand ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, technology is a tool that we use. I'm a little bit old school from the standpoint, you know this about me.
Yep.
I'd rather be out of the office face to face, sitting across the kitchen table with a client. That's where I get my work done. But with the advent of the growth of our business, the scale that we want to try to accomplish, we have to adapt and build technology into that.
Yep.
And I know I was somewhat reluctant to Zoom when it first came out. I thought, geez, I'm not going to use that. People aren't going to figure it out. And in some ways, because of COVID, we all kind of got forced to learn how to use the technology across all demographics. Obviously the younger generation, they're going to pick this stuff up. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
the thought, even 4 years ago or 5 years ago, that I would comfortably be able to interact via Zoom with a 75-year-old client in Seattle
Yeah.
just seemed like there's no way this is going to
Right.
work. It's going to be too complicated. Well, COVID kind of forced us to all learn that a little
Yep.
bit. And I think we've all incorporated into our business. And I agree with everything you said. There's a level of understanding that starts at the base level of being able to communicate via the written word.
Yep.
When I first started in the business, that was handwritten letters back and forth via snail mail. Um, it's got that built into email. And we thought, oh, wow, here we go. Well, we all know how we look at our email inboxes today. And it's,
Yep.
dear God, why? Or am I getting 250 emails today? I want to read two of them.
Right.
Um, and you brought up something I think is very important. That's context. And we talk about this all the time. The higher level of communication and the highest level of human communication is visual.
Yep.
So many things happen being able to see the person on the other side of the table, or in this case, on the other side of the computer screen. If we can enhance those levels, it just creates so many more opportunities to be able to create successful outcomes for our clients. So, I still believe in sitting across the table. I just got out of a face-to-face meeting this morning, which is it's what I
Yeah.
live to do. But this is a pretty good backup, and it allows us to reach out to some of those clients that maybe we can't get to very easily on a day-to-day basis because they live all over the country. Um, Technology has allowed us to have clients in 35 to 40 states right
Yep.
now, and it's really made it interesting.
Yeah, and I think you hit the word of it, comfortable. And what I'd say what you've always taught me and what I think that we're really good at is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? With the unknown of what's going to happen next and all those types of pieces. And when you're working with people, that's what you're dealing with a lot of times is the uncomfortable. And when you can be that foundation piece into those things, it settles everyone around you to go, oh, I got these experts that are in my corner swinging the bat for me now. And I think that's
And
great.
Yeah, and really you build on that. It's not just the, uncomfortable, but it's being able to embrace change.
Yeah.
That's really what I think Bob and I have done a really good job with.
Yep.
We're not afraid to tackle change. We've had change, I mean, massive change happen several times in my 30-year career. And for the most part, I don't even think the clients recognize that change is going on. And that's part of how we try to do this. We want to, not that we're not going to bring new products and services to the table. That's not the change I'm talking about. I'm talking about the big operational changes that come with a broker dealer change or
Yep.
massive computer system change. I mean, I've
Right.
been through so many of those, and I think the businesses that struggle sometimes and the individuals that struggle sometimes are those that say, I don't want to change. I like the way things used to be. We all have that nostalgic part of us that we yearn for what is comfortable and warm, but there's so much opportunity and change. And we have strived to embrace that
100%.
throughout the entirety of this company, which again goes back, this is our 40th year. Not
Yep.
many people realize that, but it was 1985 when my dad started this company. And what we didn't know at the time when he got into the business that he was starting this company, but that's what he did. And it's built on to where it is today.
Right. And we're gonna that's a perfect pivot into my next piece. So I was gonna say we can talk about the technology and the markets and all those types of things, but I'm gonna go back to just the start of this.
Yep.
1985,
Yep.
obviously you're not in the business. Dad is just
I'm barely in high school, dude. I'm not in high school.
yeah, right, getting
Yep.
this going. What was that time frame where you're not in the system, but you see your dad, obviously he's on the road, he's calling people. And when we talked about this last year in our first podcast of him, starting with two-way radio sales and building relationships. And he was a teacher to a principal, I believe, and then all the different hats that he had. Wealth management gets planted in 1985. This isn't even probably on your radar.
No, no,
What's the world look like for you in that time frame?
yeah. So, I mean, like I said, in 1985, I'm in middle school, well, junior high back then. We didn't have a middle school.
Right.
And had no idea what my dad did. I mean, I understood what he did before. I mean, selling two-way radios is pretty straightforward. You can
Yep.
see it, touch it, feel it. I remember people thinking that, well, the Rinkies must really have something going on because we had a phone in our car where my dad could dial through repeater towers you could talk to somebody, but you're
Yeah.
talking to him on a handheld mic. It wasn't like you had a phone today. But then when he got into this business, I mean, I didn't really understand what it was, didn't understand what he was doing. It wasn't really until I got into college that I kind of started to understand what he was doing.
Sure.
And again, talk about not having a plan. I mean, I went to SDSU in 1990 to be a mechanical engineer and spent 2 years in the engineering program. Just could see the writing on the wall. This was not my cup of tea. It's not that I didn't understand it, not that I didn't, grasp the math or the science behind it, but I just didn't see a path forward for me.
Right.
And so kind of had a little come to Jesus with the old man. Part of that was related to my grades, I think, at that time. I was really putting the time in
Yeah.
and kind of made a complete shift. And it was along the lines of, hey, I'm kind of growing something here, and maybe you'd like to come back to peer. The original conversation was, hey, maybe you go out and get some experience. Maybe when you're 30, 35, you want to move back to peer and do something. Well, with the growth that my dad saw early in his business because of, he'd figured something out on how to do this. All of a sudden I'm 23 years old and I'm back to peer and I'm a licensed advisor and I'm learning the ropes. So, I don't know that I'd invite every 23-year-old to jump in feet first like I did. There's a tremendous learning curve, but I had
Right.
good mentors and, figured out that I could sit down and talk to people. And that's kind of where it started from.
Yeah. No, and it's funny. 'Cause, I mean, your path takes you here. Mine was a little bit different in the side of being an educator and that side of piece there. And Bob had a little bit different there. And I mean, everyone's got their own story and all those things. I think the foundation of a lot of those are relationships.
Yep.
You strive to be with people. and helping each other out and lifting others in that capacity. And you mentioned this in the last moment that you said there, you had good mentors. When you think about the start of this, obviously your dad's in the mix, and that dynamic is anything of itself. But obviously there's other people that were in the mix for you to help push you along, get you over some of those tough spots, things like that. Is there people that come to mind that you're like, yeah, these are it's kind of my flagship people that I leaned into
Yeah.
as I was starting out, even middle career and even now?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're constantly looking for the next level of building into this business, and you're leaning on people the whole way. I mean, I could rattle off probably 20 different names at a certain point that meant something or continue to mean something to me today. Obviously, my dad was integral in getting me here and kind of
Yep.
showing me the ropes. We talked about his first partner, John Culberson. John wasn't with us very long because he retired in the late 90s. So just I had like a 3-year window with John, but John was old school and wasn't afraid to just say, literally, what are you going to do today? What are you going to do today that's going to bring anything, any value to this company?
Right.
And, kind of made me look in the mirror and say, wow, I gotta hustle. I gotta go out and work and I gotta do it. But, there's been tons of other people along the way and continue to find new people every day. We talk about this a lot. It's not about if you find yourself as the smartest person in a room, you're in the wrong room and
Right.
you need to move into a room with way smarter people and learn to, lean into their expertise. And, it's not about being the best at everything. It's about being really good at finding solutions for our clients and being able to get them to the right experts. And that's kind of how we've built this business, and it's worked out pretty well. Not many businesses survive 4 years, let alone 40.
Right.
And I don't really see anything slowing us down going forward.
Right. No, no, I completely agree. And that's you got to have good people around you, and I know that I was just chatting with somebody about this, but show me your 5 friends and I'll kind of tell you a little bit about yourself right there, type of thing, what kind of crowd it is that you're hanging around with. And that goes, on the father side of thing with your kids and as the professional side of thing with what you're doing here and everything else. I know, and this is kind of pivoting to a start of the story with me. Our first trip that we took together, we go and meet old ICA president, CEO Gunderson, and get to meet him in the mix of everybody. There's an array of people, and we were just chatting. He doesn't know me, and I don't know who he even is at that point in time. I bring up where I'm at and the people that are around me. First thing he says, "Oh, you're in a great office with great people. You're going to have a great time. Just buy into what it is that they're doing and leaning into what they're doing there." But the one thing that always stood out, and I have it on my computer over here, is what he said to me was, "This is a noble business."
Yep.
When I say that to you, what comes to mind coming from a guy that was running, ICA at this time, and that's a whole different story, but I think that is a foundational piece. This is a noble business.
It is. Yeah, I truly believe that, we provide a service that, people, I don't know that they recognize how much they need what we do until they've been here for a while. There's just so many things that we're able to do to help people navigate something that is very uncomfortable for a lot of people in terms of managing finances and investments. But they find out that, this is a long journey
Yep.
and, you need to create the relationships, build the relationships, really get your client base to buy into our only reason for existing at Rinke Gray is to solve problems for our clients. Now, they're all different levels of problems, right? There's some that are very immediate and we have to deal with. There's some that are longer term. I would argue the vast majority of the time, they're problems the clients don't even understand they have when they first
Yeah.
start working with us, right? But we're able to paint a picture for them of how we're going to be there with you through the times. And, you've heard me say this a lot to clients, when they ask about, what is it that you do for us? I think one of the biggest things is we're your professional worriers.
Yes.
That's what our job is. You know, you're worried about something if you're coming in to see me. You're worried about, I left this job. What do I do with this money? Um, Client I just met with here earlier, had a tragic death in their family. They weren't. What do I do?
Yep.
This is the first time I've ever dealt with this. We've dealt with it 1,000 times,
Yep.
and we're able to make, kind of going back to the comfortable
Yeah.
conversation we had before. Those tragic events are never comfortable, but we can take a lot of that worry off your table because we know how to handle this and navigate it because we've done it so many times. And that's really going back to the noble side that Greg Gunderson, again, another mentor, and I'm fortunate to count him as a friend. It's just you get to see people reach their goals. You get to help them through it. The if there's a downside to that part of this business is we're all living in unlimited time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this 30 years, and so now I've seen some of my friends that are my age are now getting to the point where they're starting to think about retirement. I'm in the same boat, okay? Um, it's hard to see it all the way through unless you have some longevity and you have a
Yeah.
plan to be able to do that. So,
No, I love and I use that when people ask professional warriors. That's so, we can be a part of that to steward what it is that you don't know. And I use it all the time. If you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And
right,
the only way of getting to that point is having the conversation to ask those types of questions. But you hit it on the head there too. It's a lot of it is having these conversations with change, right?
uh,
It's the change of a relationship, a change of a job. It's the change of me being 29 versus 49, and
yeah,
then 62 versus 73, or
yeah,
whatever the big time frame is there, and then the unknowns of the borrowed time that we have, right? I mean, it's those things are continually happening, and as you age, and I mean, it's even just in the sense of becoming a parent or whatever it is, it's this new chapter of life that unfolds in front of you, and you're going, well, what in the world do I do next?
right,
And when you've got a group like a Reinke Gray, like an establishment that we've had for 40 some odd years, is well, I've got a group here of people that I can have a conversation with, an objective third party that's going to lean into their honesty and the systems that they have in place, talk about an impact you can do over 4 decades of time, and
yeah.
then the future that we have.
Well, and if circling back to my dad, I mean, he always preached to Bob and I that, the business is bigger than us. And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
that's kind of our founding theme, if you will. It's our mission statement.
Yep.
It's to not only provide good quality service and answer the challenges for our clients today, but being able to see that if I have a 30-year-old individual, again, I just this is my week, this last week, husband, wife in their 30s in here. Hey, do we have our 401ks allocated correctly? We need to start saving some money for the kids to go to school. Kids are 2 and 3. Great, I can help you with all that. But guess what? 16 years from now, when those kids get ready to go to school, I'm probably not here.
Yeah.
But that's why, because Bob and I watched my dad recognize that and
Yep.
get him and I involved, why Bob and I have gotten Scott and Jared and Jess and Nicole and Katie and Chris all involved in the team. All of a sudden, I wake up one day and I see on the screen I do have some gray in my beard, and I'm the old guy in the office, and so
Yep.
now I'm in that position where I want to build this company for the next generation, and that's really where a lot of my focus is outside of the day to day, washing the dishes and cleaning the bottles and doing those
Sure.
things that go along with running a business. It's what are we building for the future here? Because
Yep.
I have limited time, just like everyone else, and so that's excuse me, that's really our next kind of phase in my career is preparing for the day that I'm not going to be here. And I
Right.
think building a great base underneath there. And plus, a lot of things going on in the background that will just continue to enhance that.
100%. And those things will unfold as they unfold. And I know everyone in the office is incredibly excited for those things. But let's go back into, we're gonna just kind of jump into the family and the balance side of stuff, right? Because obviously we're talking about what we're doing professionally, right? But that's only one scope of what we do, right? One, you're a son of the founder of the company, but at the other side is you're a husband and a spouse, and then a dad to four kids and everything like that. How has that balance in the work-life balance between family and everything else to having kids that were being infants, like you said, 2, 3 years old, now they're all graduated, right? In some cases, they're out of the school system completely, married, and kids on the way in the whole 9 yards. How does that
Yep.
work for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a much like the journey that our clients take. We take kind of some of that same journey, and things have changed as we've gone along. I mean, my days of, being a little league coach and, traveling to basketball tournaments, that if I get to see that phase again, if I'm fortunate enough to get to see it, it's going to be with my grandkids because,
Yep.
as you mentioned, my four kids are 19 to 29. Still need some guidance from old dad and mom, but I think we've got them started on the right path. And so, more on the work-life balance side of things, I just think it's so important. And we talk to our clients about this, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's important to save for the future, but it's also important to live in the present. And I've seen both sides of this, and you can swing the pendulum too far both directions. We all know the people that only live for today and
Yeah.
have no care for tomorrow. And we also know, and this is a smaller group, but it's still significant, that only worry about tomorrow and don't live today.
Yeah.
And how we balance that out, we try to live our lives that way. Certainly, I would be bald-faced lying to you if I tried to tell you that I'm in the office 40 hours a week every week. Doesn't mean I'm not working. That's the other interesting thing about running a company is that the doors never really close, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
I take client calls over the weekend. I get, a client will, buzz me up, shoot me an email, whatever, at 11 o'clock on a Sunday. I try to answer those things where I am. I'm not going to, but the flip side of that is I'm not going to step away from a kid's birthday party to answer a client call. I mean,
Yep.
so you have to figure that balance out. Um, and I think that's important for our clients to do as well. And, you've heard me talk about it in client meetings. Okay. That's great. I can put a perfect plan together for you. I can lay this out mathematically. It all makes sense. You're going to walk out this door and life is going to happen. And we
Yes.
have to be able to adjust and have that ongoing dialogue to be prepared for whatever life might throw at us. And that's kind of one of the challenging but fun things about what we do as well is that, it's very, very, very rare that I can lay out a plan that is going to work exactly like I said, because
Yeah.
everything's going to work out perfect. There's going to be medical issues. There's going to be family issues. There's going to be
Yep.
job issues. And you can't, you know, put that all on the back shelf and not think about it, but you also have to balance it out and still spend time with your family and spend time with your
Yep.
friends. And sometimes that means you burn the candle a little bit on both ends,
Yep.
uh, and that's what I think is really unique about the team that we have here is it provides the opportunity to have that life work balance because of the fact that we all can lean on each other. You
Right.
know, there's not many client situations that if it's a client of mine that there's not two or three more people intimately involved in that whole process right here. It's not just on me. And that's again, going back to the business is bigger than us.
Right. And the longevity of what's available, right?
Yeah.
You're always incorporating other people into the mix of this team effort rather than it's just Scott and I, and then that's what he's got, and that's what he's got to do, and it is what it is. And when he's gone, then we're out. That's not the case here, which is unique, I think, in this industry for sure, but very impactful for where we're at. I'm going to go into, you kind of mentioned this. I mean, just the life changes and death and change and this, that, and the other. We're going to talk about the markets because that's obviously we get a lot of these types of questions, right? We've got a change in presidency. There's another change that's taking place. You're in the business in the 90s where there's a tech boom. You go through the '08 and the '09 and all these ups and downs that people in some cases are just deathly afraid of. and you've been through the mix of all those things. What's your take on the depth of understanding for the time that you've had and in all those different types of market trends, whether it's political, and all the different sides, technology impact and the income. I mean, there wasn't even an iPhone back when you're starting. I mean,
No.
if you were to ask anyone today, it's like iPhones were just always around. They
Right.
always had them.
Right.
You could give probably my kid today an old dial phone that goes,
Uh,
and
uh,
they wouldn't have a clue
I
of
don't know
what was
what
even
it is.
going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
lay into that a little bit for me of just the years of service that you've had and what you've seen with the client interaction and the fear that they lay into us.
Yep. Yep. And again, we try to absorb some of those fears and alleviate them. Nobody likes when the market goes down. I don't like when the market goes down,
Yeah,
but it's inevitable and it's going to happen. It'll happen again. We're going to have another, 2008, 2009. We're going to have another, you know, we don't even talk about 2000 to 2003, which I would argue is worse than 2008, 2009. 2008, 2009 was like ripping a Band-Aid off. It was 18 months and was over. 2000 to 2003 was 36 months of holy cow. Every time I put money in, it just gets worth less. And I've shared this story with my own personal investments and my 401k. You know, my balance that I had at the end of 2000 was the same that I had at the end of 2003. And I'd filled up as much money as I could put in it every single year, but I tripled the number of shares that I had.
yeah,
And so when the market recovered, I finally got to see the fruit of, hey, this is a long-term game. If there's one thing I've learned in the market, time heals everything.
yeah,
And that's why it's so important in the conversations we have with our clients. One of the key questions I ask all the time is if it's not blatantly obvious, what's this money for?
right,
It's really easy when I'm talking to a 30-year-old and we're talking about their 401k. This money's for retirement. Okay.
right,
So I can tell you at age 30, the only place your money should be, in my opinion, is invest in the stock market.
right,
Risk really doesn't matter to you at age 30 when you're not touching the money for 30 years because, even though I get it, history doesn't always repeat, but it rhymes an awful lot. And Scott, you well know, not only has there never been a negative 30-year period in the market, there's never been a negative 16-year period in the
right,
market.
right,
And I know the worst return over a 30-year period is still north of 7% per year. And
right,
if I could lay that out to you at age 30 and say, you're going to get the worst you're going to do is 7% per year based on history and what we've seen, I'm willing to take that bet.
right,
Now, you get somebody, what happens? We get a little bit older. You start seeing that, the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel is getting
yep,
bigger and hey, I'm going to need this money. Got to make adjustments for that. You have to be risk adjusted based on time. What is this money for? I'm going to need some money. I'm going to retire next year.
right,
Great. So you're going to retire. You're 60 years old. Or how long you think you're going to be around?
right,
We don't know the answer to that. I can tell you what the averages are. You
sure,
probably got another 20 plus years of life. Just kind of coaching people through that because it's their
yeah,
first time. Every time they do something like that, when they retire, it's their first time.
exact. I was just gonna say, I love that.
Yeah, we've done this thousands of times,
Yeah,
thousands of times, and we can show you why this works. And we live this every day, and that's what we hope to bring to the table to our clients is let us solve these problems for you. Trust because we've been around for 40 years. We've seen all kinds of market cycles. We didn't even talk about things that happened before my career.
yeah,
My dad's career started, in 1985. His partner John came in 1987. 2 weeks after John came in, we had the stock market crash in 1987. Market went down over 20% in one day.
right,
One day. And could have folded tent, could have said, oh, this is terrible. Look at, but we rode through it because we had a plan and we got our clients through it because we were there as their professional warriors and we were the ones that are, keeping them focused on what's the end goal.
right.
So, yeah.
No, it's just fascinating what, like you said, time can do for you. And like you mentioned, it's when you have that first conversation with somebody, it might be their first time.
Right.
It could very well be their first time that the market was down at all, right? I mean,
Right.
if you start in 24, you probably had a pretty good time.
Yeah.
But if you would have started in 2020, you're going, man, I don't know if I'm ever doing this again.
Right.
It's just a matter of all those different pieces of the puzzle, but that's where you lean into the people that you're working with. And then when it's not just yourself, but it's a team of people that you can call on and talk and have a conversation with, that have an understanding of what your goals are, of why we're doing it in the first place, and then marrying that with a plan, then all of a sudden you go, well, I can lay my head down on this pillow a little bit easier
Yep.
because what I did today isn't for tomorrow. It's for 65-year-old me. And I
Right.
just happen to be 25.
Right.
So
Yeah. And
that
it's,
market down point was a little different.
and it's different, different for different ages of clients, right? My fear with the younger client is they step into the market, January of 2020, and they invest their first chunk of money, and by March of 2020, it's worth a third less than what they started with.
Yeah.
And they just hit the panic button. And not only do they exit stage left at the absolute wrong time, they exit stage left and never come back.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been there, I've done that, I lost money, well, whatever.
Doesn't work.
Um, but then with the older clients, it's, hey, I've got to have this money last. So I don't know how long I'm going to live. I don't know what's going to come up. And so, coaching people through what their money realistically can do for them.
Right.
Everybody wants to, chase what's on social media, and there's always somebody with a better idea of how we're going to do something. And, I made 40% last year. Great. Repeat that for 20 years and I'll talk to you. We all know that's not going to happen.
Right.
So it's setting reasonable expectations, managing expectations, and then managing emotions when things get tough. And I would argue too, especially with some of the younger people right now, is managing expectations when things are good.
Right.
Don't set that as a benchmark because the S&P went up 25% in 2023. That you might go 10 years or 20 years before you see that again.
Right.
It's plodding along to get 7, 8%, which is going to get you to where you need to be. Trust me. But it's understanding that, you have to look at what is happening right now in context with historically what has happened, and, be able to just manage your emotions through all those times, good times and bad.
Yeah.
It's, and we've talked a little bit about this. I mean, as human beings, the level of happiness that we get when things go our way doesn't seem to offset the level of despair you can see when things are going bad, right?
Right.
When things are going bad, you hear things like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never doing this again. That was the worst thing that's ever happened to me." And but we don't
This time is
offset that with the
different.
happy, right? It's just
Yep.
this flipping roller coaster up and down. Our job is to let's smooth this out a little bit.
Right.
I'm honest with my clients. I sit down with them and I tell them we might not see a year like this again for a while,
Yeah.
right? Does that mean that I quit investing? Well, no, because I could be dead wrong. Late 1990s, we had 4 years in a row like this.
Right.
I don't want to miss out 2 years because I think the market's too high right now. I will promise you between now and the time that I'm done here on earth, the market's going to be a lot higher than it is right now.
Right.
It might not go in a straight line, but you talk to people about, I mean, I remember through my career, reading a book early on that said Dow 10,000. And I kind of chuckled when I read it.
Yeah.
And then the guy wrote a book, Dow 20,000. I'm like,
Yep.
oh, God, this guy's a fruitcake. We're never going to get there.
Right.
And here I find myself, in the latter middle stages of my career, and it's not Dow 10 or Dow 20, it's Dow 40,
Right.
and it's going to be Dow 100,000 at some point. It will be there.
Right.
It'll happen. Is it going to happen in my lifetime? Probably
Right.
based on just normal market conditions, but it's hard for us to understand. So when I talk to clients, I try to bring them back into things that are real to them that they understand. And, you can talk about, I've talked to my dad about this, first car you bought, Dad. Oh, I remember it, cost me $1,250. It was a brand new car,
Yeah. Yep.
brand new car, just helped my daughter buy a new car the other day. It's nothing fancy.
Right.
I promise you it wasn't $1,250.
Yeah. No doubt.
And if I'd have told my granddad before he passed away that, hey, someday people are going to walk in and they're going to spend 6 figures on a vehicle, that's twice as much as I paid on my first house.
Right.
So things change, values change, and we have to adjust ourselves along the way as we
Yeah,
go.
adjust,
And
educate,
yeah,
and just the whole 9 yards of it. It's
just
incredible.
understand that
And I,
things
you know,
change.
we're both golfers and things like that, and I laugh at it because we've both probably heard it, but it's more about having a whole bunch of average shots throughout the
Yeah,
18 holes than it is
yeah,
to have three hole in ones, right? You
yeah.
have three hole in ones. Don't get me wrong. The rest
Yep.
of the place is gonna be happy because you're buying drinks for everybody, and you're
Right.
probably jumping off the cliff. But if you go the next 15 holes and triple bogey everything, you're not even thinking about those hole in ones anymore because you're
Right.
just on the other side of the coin. So,
Right. I mean, and there's a lot of analogies. I mean, I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about golf. I could talk about golf forever. I love to
yeah,
play
I
the
know.
game. I'm a constant, delving into how to make myself better at the game. Um, but you're 100% right. The best golfers, we all set our standards based on what's going on in the PGA. Well, reality is none of us that are listening to this call have a really good chance of ever being there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if you're trying to lower your scores in golf, it's not about the number of birdies that you get. It's really about the number of double bogeys and triple bogeys you avoid.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yep.
it comes down to. It's statistically proven. Yeah, I can back it up with tons of
Yep.
data.
Just be
Um,
boring.
yeah, it's stay the course. It's do the right things at the right time, and stay out of your own way a lot of times.
Yeah. Stay out of the weeds. Stay out of the rough.
Yep.
Stay out of the ugly spots. No. So, uh, all good stuff. I've been around 40 years, the company, 30 years for yourself, peer, basically the whole time.
Yeah.
How has growing up in a community
Yeah.
like this and your involvement in it? Because I know you've had your hands. I mean, you got the Hyde Stadium piece and all those different things. How has growing a business, growing relationships and a family, all in the center part of South Dakota and Pierre
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
for you?
You got to put your roots somewhere. And I was fortunate enough to be able to come back to Pierre, where I basically grew up. I moved here when I was 10 years old,
Yeah.
fourth grade. So I like to joke I'm almost an official resident now because I've been here for maybe 3 years of my life. Super important to me. It has to be about what you want out of life, and kind of that going back to that work-life balance. Obviously I'm attracted to Pierre not only because of all the years I've spent here and the great friends I've made, but I love the outdoors, and I love to hunt, I love to play golf, I love to fish, all things that are pretty easy to do from here. I love the lifestyle that goes with Pierre, small town feel, but again, with technology, we're connected to the world, and I can be on an airplane and be anywhere in the world in 24 hours. And I can, jump in a car and be in Sioux Falls or Rapid City or Omaha or Denver in a very short period of time. It's not for everyone. I get that. But I think it speaks to you don't have to be in a big city to have a big business and have a big impact on people. And I certainly feel we've been able to do that here with what Rinky Gray's done. Great place to raise kids.
Yep.
I love it. The downside of the small town is sometimes there's not maybe the apparent opportunities for our kids. As I've got kids scattered all over the country now, and I'd love nothing more than to have them closer at some point, and hopefully we will, but we'll see where life goes. But pretty good place to have a home base for sure.
No, no, and I completely agree with you, and it's one of those things where it's been cool to see both you and Bob Reinke Gray, I should say, with even and I'm going to speak to this because it just kind of stands out to me with the thought that I have with it. Hyde Stadium, Reinke Gray, um, that pops up there. Shoot, most of your kids were probably out of the baseball system when a lot of that gets resurrected,
Yeah,
right? So that's
I laugh about that. My son Max got to play one exhibition game on Hyde Stadium.
yeah, right,
And that was basically a few of us putting our foot down and saying, "Holy cow, we ground this thing out. Give them a game. Give them one game."
right,
Um, but it speaks to what we've been talking about. Hyde Stadium's bigger than Max and Shay Rinke. This business is bigger than me. You
yeah,
know, you have to pay it forward and do the things you can do. And, somebody has to step up and do it. And it's, about just leaving a legacy that's better than what you started with. And, yeah, I mean, there's been tons of projects like that have been near and dear to me, and I've been able to kind of put my time and talent, and in some cases treasure behind, and help them out a little bit. Yeah, it's been fun to see things grow. We've got some really good things here in Pierce, South Dakota.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really good people that live here that have done so much more than I could ever aspire to make it a great community. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I just when I see that, and I just know that we've had conversations about it, it's fun to have somebody that you're around that you look up to that is seeing that legacy side themselves at the time that they've got, and that it's just this is what's right, right? This is the right thing to do in the time that I've got it, so I'm going to do it because that's one of the mottos that we have. Always just do the right thing.
Right.
And those types of things are impactful across the board. So that was my timer that buzzed off. There was our window closing on the conversation.
Yeah. You're not Joe Rogan. We're not going 3 hours on this thing.
Yeah, and the good
I
thing
got like
about
3
this
more
is
hours of
this is
stuff
going
I'm getting canned up.
yeah, this is going to continue forward. So this isn't your first time and last time. This is a first of what will be many different episodes in different areas that we can approach on. But I wanted to have you on to be, I mean, obviously the Reinke of the Reinke Gray is in the mix that people see all the time. Let's put a face to that name. Let's hear a little bit about the story of where things started to where we are and where we aspire for ourselves to go. And with that, just kind of as an ending piece, if there was an advice item that you could say, man, I wish 23-year-old me would have heard X, or this, is there something that you go, man, this is what would have helped uh, smooth out some pieces for me when I first started, and I obviously got to learn anyways, but
Yep.
anything stand out?
Yeah, I mean, we use this in our household all the time. Control what you can control. Um, Life is going to come at you. Don't worry about things that are out of your control. Take them in bite-sized pieces, and live a life uh, to make other people happy. I mean, I get the most enjoyment in my life by seeing smiles on other people's faces. There's a reason we don't all walk around with mirrors to look at ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
But my joy comes from seeing other people be happy, whether it's as a result of what we do in business, whether it's somebody shooting their first pheasant, whether it's somebody making their first free throw. Enjoy those things and live by the mantra of, doing what's right's never wrong.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. No, control what you can control is tough in a world that everybody wants a hand in everything, right?
Yeah.
And access to everything is literally at a finger touch
Yep.
of a mouse or an iPad or something like that. Whereas, 30 years ago, I mean, if you wanted a report on Hoover Dam, you needed the H encyclopedia from Britannica to
Right.
get some details, right?
Yeah, we've become a very impatient society.
Yeah,
And I'm guilty of that quite often, where we become a product of our environment. And if I need something, it's a matter of Googling it on my phone and pushing a button, and it's can be there in, 2 to 5 business days.
right.
Sometimes letting things marinate is okay.
Yeah. Well, I've heard, and this is just one of those old cliches and adages, the best Thanksgiving dinners aren't made Thursday morning. It's Sunday when they took the turkey out to unthaw, right?
Yeah.
So those
Yep.
things take time, right? That good
Yep.
Thanksgiving dinner that grandma made, those dinner rolls and things like that wasn't at noon out of the microwave. It
Yep.
it took some time, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's really important that, and we can sit here and throw cliches back and forth at each other, but it's stop and smell the roses. It's enjoy life,
Yep.
enjoy your family and your friends, and, spend time on the things that matter. It's really easy to get dialed in and caught up on all the minutia that's going on around us. And, um, you know, you're not going to be able to solve every problem, but
Yeah.
you work hard. And again, beauty of having a team that we have here at Rinke Gray is we don't have to shoulder that whole responsibility ourselves. We've got a great group of people to work with and an unbelievable group of clients that, I'm thankful for every day.
Right. Well, perfect. Well, hey, I appreciate the first episode of what will be multiple episodes of
Perfect.
having Brad Reinke on the mix. The big thing is we just got to carve out the time. Both of us are closing this message down, and we're both heading off to meetings. So we'll close that down. I appreciate it. I hope the viewers do as well, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Take care, buddy. Yep. Bye-bye.